distinguida audiencia, vamos a empezar en 2 minutos. Solucionamos una teniendo cosita técnica y empezar. Sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I was talking to my very, very good friend Gloria in Spanish. Okay, so we are going to start in 1 minute and a half because we are solving a minor technical issue and we start. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this session of the Public Forum. It is a pleasure to see such a diverse audience gathered here to discuss a topic that is both timely and crucial for our region and for global food systems, the digitalization of agricultural trade in Latin America. We are very grateful for your presence and interest in joining this dialogue today. Let me begin by expressing our sincere gratitude to the Latin American WTO members co-organizing this event: Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Ecuador, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Panamá, Paraguay, Peru, the Dominican Republic, and Uruguay. Also to the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, ICA, for its technical and financial support in organizing this session as part of the activities of the Latin American Agricultural Negotiators Network at the WTO. To our distinguished panelists, whom I will have the honor of introducing shortly, and to all of you, participants of the Public Forum, who year after year show interest in this joint session organized by Latin American Group and ICA, dedicated to agricultural trade and its role in shaping a more sustainable and resilient future. Agricultural trade in our region is undergoing a profound transformation. Digitalization and the adoption of new technologies open concrete opportunities to enhance efficiency, resilience, and sustainability in Latin America's agricultural production and trade. In a global context marked by increasing food insecurity and the impacts of climate change, these tools provide the means to optimize the use of resources, improve competitiveness, and strengthen our integration into world markets. In this session, we will hear from distinguished experts from the public, private, and institutional spheres, who will share experiences and best practices in applying digital technologies to agricultural trade. Their insights will allow us to explore how innovation can reinforce Latin America's role as key player in global food systems while advancing a more inclusive and sustainable development path. I am now very pleased to introduce our distinguished panelists. Ms. Gloria Abraham is an international consultant and advisor to ICA. She has served as Costa Rica's Minister of Agriculture and Livestock, as permanent representative of Costa Rica to the WTO, and as chairperson of the WTO agricultural negotiations. With her extensive experience in agricultural policy and trade, she will bring a valuable regional perspective to our discussion. And I have to add to this that she is one of my idols. Mr. Rodrigo Cárcamo is Chief of the Agricultural Commodities Section at UNCTAD in Geneva. With more than 2 decades of experience on trade and development issues, he has led research and capacity building projects focused on sustainable agriculture value chains in developing countries. His expertise will help us connect regional challenges to the broader multilateral agenda. We have Mr. Danilo Miranda, is the co-founder and CEO of Bloomspal, a Colombian B2B technology platform that directly connects agricultural producers with international buyers. Recognized as Colombian Exporter of the Year 2023 and as Ambassador of Digital Agriculture by the OAS, he brings an entrepreneurial perspective on how digital innovation is reshaping agricultural trade in the region. And Mr. Victor Rodriguez serves as Director of the Agricultural Trade Treaties Office of the Dominican Republic. With over 20 years of combined experience in government and private sector, he has specialized in trade negotiation, SPS measures, and food systems initiatives under the United Nations Food System Transformation Hub. He will share insights on how digitalization is being incorporated into national policies and strategies. So you can see we have a great panel here. So we'll now move to the interactive part of our session. The discussion will be structured in 3 rounds of questions, with each panelist receiving a specific question in every round. Each intervention will have a maximum of 5 minutes. It seems that I'm explaining the rules of a game or something, but not. And if time allows, we will also take a few questions from the audience at the end of the discussion. So let us begin with our first round of questions. First, Gloria. So Latin America is increasingly recognized as a critical actor in global food systems. From your perspective, Gloria, what innovative regional agricultural practices offer valuable lessons for sustainable agriculture and global food security?
Thank you, Sofia, and I appreciate the invitation made by the delegates, agricultural delegates for Latin America for this session. It's for me is very appreciate in my heart be here with you. Latin America and the Caribbean is a cornerstone in the global food security. The region provides over 14% of the world's food production and close to 18% of global food agri-food exports. In 2023 alone, LAC reached an agri-food trade surplus of more than $217 billion, and by 2033, it is projected to represent almost 1/5 of the global agri-food exports. This means that the ability of our farmers to produce and trade sustainably is not only a regional matter, but a global responsibility. Several regional practices offer valuable lessons. First of all, family farming and diversified systems. Millions of smallholders produce grains, fruits, coffee, and vegetables, sustainable local food security while conserving biodiversity. Second, agroforestry systems, such as shade growth coffee in Central America or integrate system in the Amazon, which capture carbon, protect water, and supply international markets with sustainable products. Third, sustainable certified production. Examples like carbon neutral livestock in Colombia and in Costa Rica, carbon neutral in coffee in Costa Rica, or fruit exports under strict environmental standards from Chile and Peru show how trade and sustainability can reinforce each other. Fourth, community-led water and soil management practices in arid zones of Chile, Mexico, and Brazil that ensure resilience and drugs and land degradation. The key lessons is that the Latin American and the Caribbean agriculture proves it is possible to combine global trade, sustainability, and food security. But to scale up these practices, we need not long-term public policies. international cooperation, and trade frameworks that recognize and reward the value of sustainable production.
Thank you very much, Gloria. So I will now turn to Rodrigo. Rodrigo, while digital agriculture presents enormous potential for trade and development in Latin America, it also faces a number of challenges to fully reach this potential. In your opinion, what are those challenges?
Thank you, Your Excellency, and thank you very much for the invitation of the group of Latin American delegations at the WTO. In terms of challenges, first, I would like to point out what I call the 4 gaps that digital agriculture face. The first one is the digital gap in internet access in rural areas. We can put the slide. I will show you rather than tell you. Yeah, only a few slides. Yes. Okay, so what you have there is household access to the internet of 21 countries in Latin America. The source is ECLAC. And you can see below the rural access over time between 2001 and 2021. And over, you see the access in the cities. And you see that the gap has narrowed down a bit in the last 5 to 6 years, but the data doesn't seem to show that this gap is closing down. And this is a worrying problem. So we have a huge gap that if it is closing very slowly. Next slide, please. And the second and the third, I'm just going to show, these are examples for individual countries in Latin America to show the differences between the first quintile of income and the fifth quintile of income, between, let's go, the rich and the poor. And you see that the line below represents the fifth quintile, and the first quintile, and the one above is the fifth, and in every country it's the same. The only differences are when the line for the rich people goes up, that reaches around 80, 90 or plus percent, and then levels off, and in the rest, it slowly starts to increase. As we all know, rural poverty and the poor live a lot in Latin America. So this is a serious issue. And the slide below, this we had El Salvador, then we had, I can't remember, what was it? Well, I was too fast, I cannot. But Paraguay, yes. And then below, go down, yes. Then you have Colombia and Peru. As you see, the pattern is pretty much the same. And I had this data for 20 countries, it's pretty much the same. The only thing that varies is the rate of change. Now, this is about the digital gap. Now, the second gap is the education gap, which includes digital literacy. There's nothing more to say, we all know about that. The third gap is the infrastructure gap that includes both transport and energy infrastructure. Why this is important? Because this increases costs. If you are a remote farmer in Bolivia, in the Chapare, or in San Martin, in Peru, or in places where infrastructure is not as good as close to the capital, you're going to have an increasing cost for energy and for transport. And this is important for adoption of digital technology. When there's jungle, when there's mountain, with this remoteness, this is important. And another important issue is that infrastructure is also more vulnerable there to extreme weather events. And we'll get to that. The fourth gap, and for me a very important one, is the income gap that smallholders face. And this comes from low yields, nothing to say, we all know about that, high uninsured risk that these countries are facing, high and volatile input costs. Please, the next slide. I will show you about input costs. These are fertilizer real prices, a very long series from 1985 to 2025. These are real prices. These have been deflated by the US PPI. We can debate if this is the best deflator, but if you have a monthly one that is better, happy to change it. And you can see the huge spikes in the prices of fertilizers. By the way, the correlation between the 3 series, which are potash, urea, and diammonium phosphate, is between 80 and 87%. So we're talking about very highly correlated products that are very different and for different reasons. And an interesting point is, and related to the high input cost and low farm gate prices, is that if we compare the last point in the series, which is July 2025, with the average between 1995, I took the start of the WTO because of the place we're in. And now we have that the ammonium phosphate is 45% more expensive today. Potassium chloride, potash, is 5% less expensive today than the average, and urea is 36 more percentage more expensive. But if we compare that with the prices of food, for example, wheat prices are 27% below, maize 23% below, and rice is 32% below. So we have low food prices and high input prices, and this is a serious problem. So this is part of the gap. And finally, another challenge, there are a number of other issues that we can go in detail in the questions. Number one, vertical differences in the adoption of technologies. Adoption between smallholders is very different than adoption between intermediaries and adoption by exporters. And also there's the very big challenge of climate change. How will climate change, for example, affect perception predictions? Because, for example, models using digital agriculture use predictions, but use past data. When there's a structural change in the data, how are they going to cope with that? And that may affect the benefits of adoption if it is not properly taken into consideration. And finally, extreme weather events might affect sensors. As you know, digital agriculture depends a lot on the Internet of Things, on sensors, on drones. Extreme weather events, floods, heat, etc., affect the thing. So climate change is a very important thing. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry. Thank you very much, Rodrigo, for these comments, this analysis. And I will turn to Victor. Victor, turning to the Dominican Republic, what are the digital technologies currently trending in agricultural production? Could you tell us about the main characteristics of local production, the tools producers are adopting, and the role of Ministry of Agriculture in supporting this process?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here this day in this session in the public forum. Maybe I can address the second question first and then the first one. That's okay. Dominican Republic agriculture primarily focus on staple crops, rice, beans, tropical fruits, tubers, and livestock, chicken, pork, beef, and seafood products. Form the core of the Dominican diet. Widely consumed tropical fruit, including bananas, mangoes, papayas, and avocados. We are the second producer of avocados in the world after Mexico, a small island in the Caribbean. Alongside with this, we consume wheat flours products for breakfast and dinners. We use Dominican cocoa products such as chocolate infusions and flavored chocolate milk. Is also a popular staple food in the DR. The country achieved a high level of food self-sufficiency, producing approximately 90% of the food consumed in the market by its residents. To enhance agricultural efficiency, the government is developing third-generation plant varieties such as pest-resistant rice varieties, because this is the main crop that we consume in DR, which reduce the needs of chemical inputs and increase yields per hectare. Compared to other countries at similar latitudes, we with equivalent daily hours, the Dominican Republic ranks among the most efficient in the region, in the Caribbean and the tropic. We produce large-scale, producers have adopted satellite services to monitor rice fungi and to mitigate or minimizing crop losses. Is increase the yield and use the technology to optimize the use of pesticides, fertilizers, application, and the bigger producers use precision agriculture tools with drones and with mechanized I don't know, tractors maybe. However, extending these technologies to small and medium-sized producers remains a challenge for us to adopt these technologies because the cost of entry is significant for them. In poultry production, biotechnology in breeding has screened animal weight and enable slaughters by day 32 of the production, producing a more fatty poultry and balanced diet. Control environmental technologies have recently been introduced to reduce production losses, achieving key performance indicators comparable to those in Latin America to region. The poultry is the most important protein for the consumption in DR, uh, accompanied by rice and beans. The Ministry of Agriculture supports farmers, ranchers, and aqua farmers through various programs, including access to certified seeds for rice and other crops, fertilizers, planting tools, and land preparation services for SMEs. A public stockholding mechanism ensures food security by balancing supply and demand for staple foods, enhancing competitiveness and profitability across the value chain. Additionally, biosecurity protocols for beef, pork, and aquaculture products are enforced right now. We annual training in good agricultural practices required to producers to renew the operation certificate every year to ensure that this is food safety for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor. Um, so I am very pleased, we are very pleased to have a Latin American agri-entrepreneur with us today to bring in the perspective of day-to-day practice. So Danilo, could you briefly share with us the story of Bloomspal and how did the platform emerge and what was the initial motivation behind its creation?
Okay, can you hear me well? Well, first of all, Ambassador, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the WTO and the IICA for inviting me. I'm very humble to be here. My name is Danilo Miranda. I'm co-founder at Bloomspal. I come from a family that has been in international trade for many generations. Trade, international trade is part basically from our identity as a family. We have been in the flour, in the coffee, fruits, vegetable, herbs and spices business, exporting to many countries. And as I grew up into this legacy, I also witnessed myself a lot of inequalities that we currently see in the traditional supply chains. The reality is that most of the supply chains are built for large corporations or high volume or high volumes. And for the most of the small and medium companies and brands, it's very difficult to have market access because, let me illustrate. If a coffee farmer wants to sell their roasted coffee to a coffee shop in the United States or to the end customer, this farmer would need to have a lot of volume, a container, pay the container in advance, pay for warehousing in the consumer country, and a lot of knowledge. And on top of that, well, all the regulatory and the legal framework that companies require to export the product. Obviously, with all that boundaries and frictions, well, most of the small producers, they ended up not exporting, okay? And in agriculture, exporting the products is half of the business. Is that important? Okay. So with that frictions in mind, that frustration, we created Bloomspal. Bloomspal is a technology and supply chain company that it's a cross-border e-commerce company that connects brands and food producers directly with end customers or retailers, and we centralize trade, logistics, and payments in just one place. What we offer to our customers is that we help them to delivered to the end customer without managing inventory in the consumer country. So in this case, all the inventory in Colombia, and delivering such as a single small box via e-commerce from Colombia to any zip code in the United States in less than 48 hours. Yes, in less than 48 hours. We export, import, deconsolidate, and do the last mile very fast. We have the technology, and we have also the knowledge to put perishable products because, well, we began in flowers, and if anyone here knows about the flower business in Colombia knows that is mainly by plane. So with all this knowledge, we are transforming completely the supply chain in agriculture, helping small growers to sell directly to the end customer, or to do in collaboration with a social media influencer because that social media influencer wants to create its own coffee brand. I ended up working with farmers in Colombia. So that's what we do. And yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Danilo. I think it's great what you're doing. So that's why in this second round of questions, I will start with you, Danilo. I will ask you something else. So Bloomspal has already reached many farmers across Latin America. Could you share a concrete success story where the platform significantly improved farmers' productivity, profitability, or sustainability?
Yes. Thank you for the question, Ambassador. We have a very lighthouse customer that is Sofia Vergara. I don't know if you guys know her in the TV. She's one of the top celebrities in the US, and she's Colombian. She launched and scaled its business with Bloomspot. And this is very interesting. Why? Because she decided to create a coffee brand. So we selected through the Federación Nacional de Cafeteros women-led coffee farms, and we integrate those women-led coffee farms into the supply chain, okay, working very closely with them and obviously paying them way more. Why? Because we are adding value in the country of origin. We are exporting roasted coffee to the American market. It's not a coffee that is being roasted in the United States. It's being roasted very close to the farmer. And that obviously brings way more profit for the farmer. And another thing that is incredible is that Dios Mío Coffee, that is the name of the brand, of the coffee brand, this coffee is the first brand that does the complete fulfillment of all the e-commerce from Colombia. So with Bloomspot, we connect to all their e-commerce, Amazon, Walmart Marketplace, Shopify, and she sells. And our technology received the order in Colombia, and from our warehouse and all the operation in Colombia, in the country of origin, we export, import, deconsolidate, and deliver to the end customer. If one of you guys lives in the US, please, you can order and read the label, and you will see that it's coming from Colombia. Another success story, if you can, this one, is with the Federación Nacional de Cafeteros. The Federación Nacional de Cafeteros is the government entity that supports coffee farmers in Colombia. Well, we signed a contract, and now they offer as a part of their strategy to help farmers to over 500K families, or coffee farmers. They are offering direct-to-consumer shipping. So, and we do the same thing. We create a market access through logistic that it's able to deliver small quantities to a consumer country. And now a small Colombian farmer They can roast the coffee in the country, and we deliver directly to the end consumer. And it's a reality. So those are two examples of how we do it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Danilo. Very, very interesting. So I will turn to Victor. Victor, looking at the marketing and trade dimension in the Dominican Republic, are sales still taking place mostly through physical channels, or is there already an e-commerce ecosystem in place? And are digital platforms or marketplaces being used?
Thank you, Ambassador. Maybe I can start with some key figures in our Dominican market. According to our central bank, e-commerce sector is thriving in the Dominican Republic. Reach a value of 5.2 billions, accounting about 5% of the GDP, the national GDP, in 2024. And 36% of these transactions, e-commerce sector, going to the domestic and transshipment commerce. Half of this is electronic commerce to the international markets. According to the American Market Intelligence survey in 2024, crossover electronic commerce is projected to grow by 22% in this 2025. Digital wallet adoption has surged lately, increasing from 7% to 32% in this current year, driven by the introduction of Google Pay and Apple Pay in the payment systems in DR. Approximately 50% of the Dominican population purchase fast-moving consumer goods via e-commerce, far exceeding the Latin American average. This trend is supported by neighborhood stores, known locally as colmados o tiendas de barrio, como lo llaman en algunos otros países latinoamericanos. We have offered free door-to-door delivery for over 35 years. This store has recently adopted digital platforms like WhatsApp, Tipago, or any other mobile apps branded by the major brands in DR to maturing the e-commerce value chain. Mobile phone account for 70% of local and international e-commerce transactions in the age, which 42% of these purchases being groceries and over-the-counter medicines or medications in our country. Additionally, 76% of Dominicans access the internet daily, enabling rapid adoption of digital tools and audiovisual content for education and learning. Retail accounts for 66% of the online sales, and only the supermarket chains contributing to 44% in the digital e-commerce. Now I want to do or give you two examples of companies in DR, recent companies. These startup companies. One is Ocoa Bay, and the second is Cocoa Mai, that illustrate the potential that has the electronic commerce. Ocoa Bay is the first Caribbean winery, produces award-winning white wine under unique conditions, and has developed a digital ecosystem to promote his brand and offers gastrotourism experiences. Currently, they sales are 10% generated through the e-commerce platform, and they want to expand in 2 years to make a half of the sales between e-commerce and physical sales. Cocoa Mai, which sources products from SMEs producers, generates over 50% of his sales through e-commerce directly. We are present on Amazon and his own websites. They ship internationally all over the world their products. These two examples were some others benefiting from the e-commerce booming and will benefit from the Ministry's digital tools efforts, like we are right now geo-referencing, making traceability, deforestation-free certifications, and customers origin verification aligned with the EU deforestation regulation regulatory measures. We are preparing the ministry to offer that services directly to this small business. And also the ministry is formulating policies to support secure data transmission, because it's a special part of the electronic commerce right now. The fiability, the interoperability, and the mutual recognition of the information that must be harmonized in the systems between the parties. I think that the national standards must be aligned too with international frameworks, fostering a robust digital economy in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor. So, Gloria, across Latin America, what innovations have been developed to address sustainability challenges in agriculture, particularly in light of digitalization and the ongoing transformation of the agri-food sector?
Thank you, Sofia. Our region is moving towards agriculture 4.0, understood as the integration of digital, biological, and automated technologies to transform production, making, making it more efficient, climate resilient, and inclusive. That is the reason why we are talking at the ICA level about agriculture 4.0. Some innovations already taking shape include digitalization and traceability, blockchain, big data, and satellite monitoring are increasingly used to prove compliance with environmental and social standards demanded by global markets such as European Union deforestation regulation. And we are using that in Latin American experiences in some countries. By the way, with the coffee production and cocoa production particularly. Precision agriculture, drones, sensors, robotics, and smart irrigation system that reduce input use, increase yields, and adapt to droughts, floods, and heat. Bioeconomy and circularity, converting agricultural residues into biofertilizers, bioenergy, and new value-added ingredients. With its biodiversity, Latin America and the Caribbean has a unique opportunity to lead this new biological industrialization. Institutional and social innovation, from school gardens in the Caribbean to soil restoration in Chile, innovation is also about education, local empowerment, and community led solutions. But these efforts will not consolidate without long term enabling policies, flexible regulations, modern risk management tools, green financing, and greater investment in science and technology. Today, Latin America and the Caribbean countries invest less than 1% of its total GDP in research and development, which is insufficient for the scale of the transformation required. Digitalization is not an end in itself. It is the bridge between sustainability, competitiveness, and global market access. If harnessed properly, LAC can position itself not only as the world's breadbasket, but as a trusted supplier of sustainable, traceable, and differentiated products.
Thank you very much, Gloria. Rodrigo, we will turn to you. In view of the challenges that you outlined outlined earlier, what policies could help address them in Latin America in order to maximize the benefits of digital agriculture for development in the region?
Thank you, Excellency. Yes, I think that Gloria already mentioned some of the issues, in particular the very low investment. And this is key. And we see that also, for example, in adoption of new varieties of coffee and in many other things. There needs to be substantial more. So I'm going to talk about others. First, I think that from the gaps that I mentioned before, and a very important one and often neglected is the policies to reduce the income gap. Because indeed, when you are a smallholder farmer and you face a binding financial constraint to the adoption of digital technologies, addressing that binding constraint is essential. So first, increase the prices received by farmers, in particular smallholders. How can you do that? Well, there's an important role for farmer groups and cooperatives to increase income by, for example, improving the provision of inputs. We know that there's quite a bit of market power at domestic level, even regionally concentrated in different parts, because smallholders often buy their inputs on credit from intermediaries. In some countries, they're called coyotes. Second, provided cooperatives and farmer groups can provide processing services. I mean, in coffee is a very clear example, but many others. And very important, something that Danilo and Victor were mentioning, marketing service. Smallholder farmers have to have more access to marketing services, in particular to allow them to shorten the value chain, so that you cut the value chain, they can reach the final buyer and hopefully adding value. I mean, Danilo was mentioning the case of roasted in origin, which is a form of vertical differentiation that is useful. Second issue is improve yields. But I said before that a reason why there was little adoption of our digital agriculture was precisely because of low yields. Effectively, there's an endogeneity issue. It's a chicken and egg problem. You have to improve yields before you can get adoption, but if you don't improve yields, you don't get adoption. So how do you do that? What Gloria was mentioning, extension services. We have the green box in the agreement of agriculture. Latin American countries should go back to try to invest more into extension services. They have been proved to be very effective in transmitting and increasing productivity. Another issue, reduce costs. For example, investment in infrastructure, development of competitive agricultural input segments. I show you international prices of fertilizers. The prices at domestic level, in particular in remote areas, are much higher than that. Why? Because these market segments are not transparent. There are a number of issues. Also, countries have access to support under Article 6.2 of the Agreement of Agriculture. That is available to developing countries. These are flexibilities built into the Agreement of Agriculture that Latin American countries and other developing countries should be able to access and should access. Also, boost access to insurance and external finance. And of course, we can discuss long about the other gaps, the education gap, but we don't have time for that, so I'm not going to say anything about that. But I want to conclude with something that was mentioned by the other panelists. Countries need to develop and implement a national digital public infrastructure strategy and roadmap. What we are seeing at the moment in many countries are there individual initiatives in individual value chains, developed sometimes with the support from international organizations, from NGOs, from buying governments that are giving money. But what we do not see in most countries, even though there are some exceptions, like Brazil, who has in a couple of states like Pará and Minas Gerais, an initiative where it's called Selo Verde, have a national initiative, national digital public infrastructure strategy. It has to solve a number of issues. Also, we need to improve coordination among the different government agencies, and importantly, between national and subnational. This is something that often we assume that national and subnational authorities talk and coordinate. That is certainly not the case. I worked 15 years in Latin America and lived there, yeah. So, and finally, there needs to be close work between the private and public sector, as well as inter-private sector dialogue, because what one value chain wants may not necessarily be what other value chain needs. Soya value chain is very different from coffee. One is dominated by smallholders, the other one is dominated by larger producers. And with that, I conclude. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Rodrigo. So I will go now to the third round of questions, and I will start with you, Rodrigo. So to go deeper on what you are explaining. So we have been discussing the challenges and potential policy options for tapping digital agriculture as a tool for developing in the region. How can digital agriculture best support smallholder farmers in key value chains such as coffee, cocoa, which are particularly important in Latin America?
Thanks. Yes. First, digitalization can open up opportunities for diversifying potential customers, like Danilo was mentioning, and selling directly to them. I mean, he presented some examples. There are others in different regions. And this is important because this can result in higher prices, in particular for higher grades of cocoa, like Criollo or Trinitario, or for specialty coffee. These are products that are capable of being vertically differentiated. What you pay for base coffee is completely different what you pay for specialty coffee. In particular, it has a high capping rate. And this is a form of value addition. There's also the issue of roasting in origin. That is, we can debate whether it's a niche product or how big can you be. UNCTAD did a study on this exactly in Ethiopia that finished in 2021, have a study online. But I think these are all important variables. Additionally, we need to improve input use through precision agriculture, like Gloria was mentioning. For example, by having the right dosages, early warning of pests. We have many pests in Latin America: coffee leaf rust, the borer insect, soil and shoot virus, many different plagues, and reducing the cost of application of fertilizers and agrochemicals. If you have the right dosage, use less, and that is good. Reduce post-harvest losses, enable vertical differentiation through traceability. I'm sure the colleagues are going to talk more about traceability, so I'm not going to say much. But for me, the important points are two: lower the cost of use of traceability. Smallholder farmers have to be able, this has to be inclusive. This is something that UNCTAD has repeated. Traceability is good, but it has to be inclusive. Smallholder farmers need to be able to access traceability to benefit from it. And also, we need to avoid the likelihood that there's locked in into a specific type of traceability. So if you have a national traceability mechanism that is transparent, that is horizontal, that is also good, because you don't want to be locked into one firm or one sector type of traceability. And finally, digitalization can also facilitate digital credit and insurance programs. For example, smallholders are normally forced to take credit. We did a study a couple of years ago in Laos, for example. We found in the maize value chain, they were paying the intermediaries 32% a year for inputs, 32%, okay? So these are the value, this is how much a smallholder needs to pay for credit. Why? There are many reasons: lack of collateral, but digital credit and insurance programs can help. And of course, all this digital infrastructure, digitalization can also help with environmental sustainability. And I conclude with that. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Rodrigo. So we'll now turn to Danilo. Danilo, looking at the practical side, what are the main obstacles that farmers face when integrating Bloom's PAL into their export processes, whether technical, regulatory, or logistical? And what possible solutions do you see to overcome these challenges?
Well, we always tend to explain our solution as a all-in-one solution for all the boundaries when a small brand or producer wants to export their product. So basically, the challenges that we face is the one that we're gonna solve. So in this, the first one obviously is the logistics knowledge. There is a huge gap between what a small company or brand or producer knows of international supply chains of what a huge company knows. Okay, so what we do is that we are the team of that small producer in terms of logistics. We take care of all logistics, air, sea, air freight, sea freight, customs, and everything. We really help the producer to 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 have all the knowledge included in the supply chain. The other one is obviously the legal framework to export. Most of small producers, they don't they don't export, or they don't have the legal framework to export. So we also give them our company to export. So we buy inside the country, we buy the product and we export the product, even though the product is not ours because it's from the we give our legal framework for them to export. Okay. Um, Also, FDA and all those requirements, we make sure that everything is aligned with the legal part. And the other one is the technological. You cannot scale this without technology. It's very hard. It's very hard. And it's not only to connect to an e-commerce or to create a B2B marketplace. It's also what it happens, in the backlog. Yeah, that it's basically all the warehousing and how to pick and pack the things and how you can process a lot of orders at the same time, having all the documents, for the formal documents to export already printed automatically. So basically, those are the boundaries that we solve for the farmer.
Thank you very much, Danilo. Um, Victor, turning to the issue of management and digital culture, does the Dominican Republic have extension services staff trained in digital tools? And to what extent are agricultural decisions becoming more data-driven?
Thank you, Ambassador. I starting to say that the ministry is enhancing a digital tool repository called CDAgro. This is available for the government and to the small, medium, and large farmers. It's a multi-service digital platform integrated with other ministries to streamline information and services for internal staff and external users, such as farmers, ranchers, aqua farmers. This service enables the registration and georeferencing of agricultural units, crops, livestock, and aquaculture nationwide. It also includes a digitized database for health services to monitor sanitary controls and biosecurity measures in animal health, plant health, connected to the Consumer Protection Agency to enforce surveillance in the point of sales of the final products. Uh, this ecosystem, we are been working with them since 2020. We have integrated the International Plant Protection Convention e-Phyto platform in there. We interconnected in 2021 with the National Single Window for International Trade. We are enhancing that in this year to fully localize in the ministry the service of the e-Phyto and incorporate EVET and food safety certificates too in the ecosystem to interoperate with the single windows directly in the commerce to lowering down the time frame for the permissology and everything else to enhance the exportation in our ecosystem. In the second phase of this enhancement of the digital tool, the ministry is collaborating with security, health, and custom agencies in DR to form a rapid response team to implement risk-based border inspection that we don't have it yet. The goal is to coordinate all inspections on same day to achieve custom clearance within 24 hours is our goal for product not requiring quarantine, thereby enhancing trade efficiencies and facilitation for all the exportation and importation too. The third phase is focus on strengthening agricultural extension services to our farmers, especially the small ones, through digital tools. This one supports producers and marketers in crop management, technology adoption, new plant varieties, and cold chain logistics We have implemented recently a directive for cold management of perishables products in DR, and it can provide it to a small tablet or a small phone to access videos and guides in this platform. These initiatives align with the National Development Strategy of DR and the 2026 goals to double the GDP is a special goal for our country to the 2036 year. We want to double the GDP, including exportations in DR. We are in collaboration with the United Nations Regional Coordination Center to design a roadmap to align and integrate the food system transformation roadmap with the climate action in one and only tool to enhance agriculture production, consumption, and maintain and preserve the environment. It's a national strategy presided by the Dominican government, the presidency, directly. We are working with them as a single basis every day on these plans for sustainable production and marketing and consumption to make remedies to enhance our environment because agriculture has a big impact in the environment in DR. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Victor, for sharing with us the experience of Dominican Republic. So finally, Gloria, from a regional perspective, how is ICA supporting small producers in member countries to adopt new technologies with the aim of increasing the efficiency and competitiveness of the agri-food sector?
Thank you, Sofia. Well, for the Latin American and the Caribbean countries, smallholders are the backbone of the food security in Latin America, and their inclusion is crucial for sustainable development for the countries and their competitiveness in international trade. The Inter-American Institute works on several fronts. One of them is capacity building and digital extension, training producers and rural youth in digital tools, mobile applications, and precision farming techniques, linking the new generation to Agriculture 4.0. Second, innovation ecosystems. The CIMAG Interpretation Center for the Future of the Agriculture and Fab Lab bring science and technology closer to farmers, allowing them to test drones, sensors, and robotics and adapt solutions to their needs. Third, agro-entrepreneurship and financing. Through the Center for the Agro Bio Entrepreneurship and Investments, AICA incubates projects, connects smallholders with green finance, and helps them integrate into value-added markets. Fourth, regional and global alliance. Initiatives such as the Continental Alliance for Food Security, for Agro 2.0, and the Latin American Bioeconomy Networking, strengthening collaboration and ensure smallholders are part of the sustainable and competitive value chains. AICA's core message is clear. Digitalization and innovation must reduce gaps, not widen them. By supporting smallholders with technology, training, and access to differentiated markets, we ensure they can transition to more sustainable systems while maintaining or improving their incomes. Trade is central here. When smallholders access certifications, traceability, and green financing, they move from being subsistence producers to strategic actors in global agricultural trade and food security.
Thank you very much, Gloria. I think we have a few minutes for questions from the audience. Please, Roy.
Thank you very much, Ambassador and distinguished presenters. My name is Roy Santana. I would like to begin by congratulating both the current ambassador and the former ambassador of Costa Rica on the 15th and 18th of September, which is a very important date for your countries. It caught my attention that in most of the presentations, you were making a lot of emphasis on the production aspects. And I was very interested to hear more about the trade angle, the trade aspects. What is it that, because this is what we do here at the WTO, so what can the WTO do to improve the situation that you were describing? And then in terms of the cost, I was a bit surprised you didn't mention one of the most basic trade policy measures that seems to be affecting many farmers in Latin America, which is precisely tariffs. How can you adapt, buy drones, smartphones, computers, etc., if you have to pay, I don't know, 35%, 80%, 20% for this type of technologies? I know many, Latin America is more or less evenly divided between the countries that joined the ITA. So for some of them, they basically have zero duties on many of these products, but in others, the duties can be actually quite significant, right? So in terms of improving the conditions for farmers, it would look like a no-brainer that you actually reduce the tariffs for some of these products. So it's cheaper for them, easier for them to afford some of these new technologies. But then I was wondering, at least that's my hypothesis, but then I was just wondering if you can actually see that in the data. Is it the countries that have lower duties on these type of products, the ones which are adopting them, or not? Or is really something that the adoption is a bit random, that it doesn't really not correlated at all with respect to what's happening with respect to the new technologies and the tariff levels that they apply? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Roy, for your questions. If someone else from the audience has more questions, I think we can have 2 or 3 together, and then I will give the floor to every panelist. So does someone else want to, please?
Thank you very much. I'm Andrea, Secretary General of the World Farmer Organization. Thank you for this overview. It's fascinating and very interesting. I have one question to all of you, expert and with hands-on on what is happening in your own country. You talk about the digital, let's call it digital divide between rural and urban. And while on the component that you mentioned, and I commend the Dominican Republic work on training and capacity building, that's fantastic. But how we can attract private company to provide the bandwidth and the service to the rural area? Is a state role, a state facilitating role? How we can make, how trade also can support that part? Because the challenge for me, for us, for some of our members also that are from Africa, it's also there. I mean, training is possible. Farmers, especially young farmers, are exposed to this technology. They can use it, but still the communication component is lacking and lagging. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I will now give the floor for 1 minute, 1.5 minutes to address the questions to each speaker. So we'll start with Rodrigo. Rodrigo, please.
Thank you. Yes, I think that I'll start with the last one. I think that how trade can support digitalization, this was the question. Well, I think that there are many ways, but one clear one that I mentioned, but I didn't have much time to discuss, is when you are looking, and I mentioned that smallholders have much less adoption, intermediaries have heterogeneous adoption, exporters have very high adoption of digital technologies. So the solution has to be also differential, because it's not one size fits all. Now, trade, the ones who are trading are the exporters. They're not the intermediaries, and much less the smallholders. So either you make the smallholders through cooperatives exporters, that is, you shorten the value chain, like I mentioned, and that trade can improve their income directly, or you find ways of making the income of different parts of the stakeholders higher. And one way of doing that is through traceability. Now, there are large firms who are now creating their own traceability systems. They are paying the intermediaries, they're paying the smallholders to adopt digital technologies because it's in their interest. Now, and sometimes that results in improvements in income. And I think that is part of the response. Now, about the other question, what is the role of trade? I think I partially replied, But I think that, and complementing what I said before, the very difficult issue that I think we face before we actually take policies is the lack of data. And today we're talking about big data, we talk about artificial intelligence and all that stuff. That is great. But when you try as a researcher to try to find data about the prices that a smallholder producers receive for a specific price, how much is an intermediary receiving, how much is the exporter paying, and all those things, the only way of doing it normally is either in a few countries there are like national surveys, but in most of them, you have to go as an international organization and make the survey yourself. And that costs a lot of money. And that is a one-off. There's no panel data. So there's a severe data problem that we have to overcome in order to use trade as a tool that would reach everybody along the value chain, not just exporters. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Rodrigo. Gloria, please.
Well, thank you for both questions. I think Roy is very interesting your comment, and well, we are not gypsies who tell the future. Talking about tariffs is very difficult to take into account what is going on, but because at this moment the scenario is. Conversations between bilateral mechanism, one country versus another country, to see what is going on and what happened and what is the situation in a framework of national security and not a discussion here at the WTO as a multilateral discussion in the trade in the framework of trade rules. I think and this is one of the perspectives that we have, and everybody is waiting a little bit to see what is going on because we really don't know why this is the reason why I said that we are not gypsies to to answer that. Well, we talk more about production more than trade is because of the emphasis of the objective and the perspective of the activity, and I think it's important to take into account that Latin American countries are the biggest producer of food in the world. Is the only region in the world that is always in a position to offer an export of foods in the world, and it's very important to put some tools about innovation, digitalization in the production and the distribution to have a better position in our role as offer of food production. And well, I think we are all of us, we are in the middle of the convincement that trade is very important for our countries. And this is the reason why we need to put together here all those perspectives about innovation, use of digitalization, and tools of modernization of the production to have a bigger offer for the exports at the international level.
Thank you very much, Gloria. And Victor, please, you want to address the questions?
Thank you. First of all, with the first question, as my colleagues are mentioned, that we are facing this change of the trade relation globally. I think this is a kind of opportunity because we have to be clever. We have to be in a position that tariff is not the only barrier to trade. It's not the only barrier. It's a special one, but it's not the unique one. We see as a toolbox. This is my personal opinion. It's not the ministry. It's my personal opinion. We have to enhance our toolbox with innovation, lowering cost, because Latin America has the more high cost to export to the world. It's a fact. We have to lower this cost. E-tariff is one of these costs. That's why we have to make it better as a traders, as a producers, as a consumers, to be clever in the process, to learn from the bigger one, the ones that impose the agenda, the global agenda. We have to learn about that. It's a reality. We have to face it. We have to work on that. I have revised the data within my country the last 2 months. The exports are not decreasing. The exports are maintaining or increasing, depending on the products. We are facing tariffs right now. It's a reality. It's a reality. We have to work on that bilaterally to make the things happen for better good. On the long run, I think that everything going to settle. Everything going to have its proper path, because multilateral system is the only way that the world can go further together. That's the way that I see. On the second question, we have a vice ministry that is in charge to develop skills on rural development of the small farmers, businesses. We are working directly with the other agencies in the government to assist these people to enhance his livelihood, to give them the tools that they need. But it's a long run effort that we have to construct in the time. It's gonna take time because our country or levels of education are preoccupating for all of us. It's a reality. We have to work every day, every time, in every initiative. I think we all of this in mind, that we are not in a village. The village is the world. We have to step aside and look forward the international market. What are the consumers demanding? What are my competition address the cost? How they can be more efficient? They adopt technology. Projects like that in Bloomsdale, I think this is a good example that we can make it better. That's why I think that we have a turning point right now to make everything better for the greater good in this organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor, for those positive words. We need that. Danilo, please.
Yes. Look, in the inauguration, I heard one of the speakers saying that multilateralism and the WTO is like the code behind a software. When everything goes right, well, no one is asking where the engineers are, and And the code, no, people take for granted, you know. But when there is a bug or there is an issue, well, all the office is asking, where are the engineers and what is happening with the code? I think we are in this environment in that stage. We need the WTO more than ever right now. So in terms of tariffs at the end, who pays the tariffs is the end customer. And luckily, in agriculture, even if the United States wants to harvest coffee, they cannot. Cocoa as well, they cannot. Fruits, they cannot. And I can keep going. Many of the agricultural products that Latam produces, and even look, it's not United States. It's not about it's not about politics. Latam, most of Latam has no, it's in the middle of the tropics. There's no seasons. It's basically the same weather all year around. We can harvest more or less 52 weeks per year. So every single week there is certain point that is harvesting, and countries that are, you know, in the on top of the tropics, such as the United States, they cannot. So Latam is kind of the farm of the United States, even with tariffs or without tariffs, is the reality. And for them to change that is not easy. I'm not going to say impossible, but it's not easy, and it's not going to take 4 years or 3 years. It's going to take more than a decade to do that. So at the end, tariffs, the one that pays the tariffs are the end customer, and it's the imported that assumes that. So, well, food is going to be more expensive. Is that? That's it. Okay. So for us, like in exporters, it's like, okay, even though there's something, you know, I'm not gonna say amazing, but well, for instance, coffee, roasted coffee exports from Colombia are skyrocketing to the United States. You know, so it's counterintuitive, but it's the reality. And for the other question of trade, look, I think at the end everything goes to market access. If you are a company that exports containers, you will have only one kind of customer, that is the importer. Okay, if you see the supply chain, we have in the consumer country, we have importers, we have distributors, we have wholesalers, and then we have the retailer, and then we have the end customer. Okay, if our supply chain is about high volumes, such as containers, well, your customer is going to be an importer. How many importers do you think they are for your product? Not so much, not so many. That's why if you speak with the large, large exporters, they ended up selling to the same 10. Okay, that's the truth. If you can cut that line and go directly to the retailer or to the wholesaler or to the end consumer, now things change. Okay, now you have more market access and digital tools such as Bloomspa, or you know, I come here as a representative of the Actex in Latam. ICA has been doing an amazing job putting a group of Actex. I'm lucky to be here, but I'm also speaking upon them. Technology like Bloomspa or other ones are creating this market access that is very important for the new generations, because new generations are trading like that. New generations consume because one social media influencer is telling, look, buy this coffee. Okay, so we need to trade like that. We need to understand that digital transformation and cross-border e-commerce must be in the middle of the discussions, and that if we want to have a more sustainable, direct, and just trade, digitalization must be on the center of the table.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Danilo. Well, thank you to you all. I will close this seminar, but first I want to say thank you to the agricultural delegates from the Latin American missions, because you have made all the heavy work to have this seminar today. And of course, again, thanks to the ICA for the very, very indispensable support to be here. I think it has been a great session, many ideas, very concrete. So round of applause, please. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the day.